Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We have a jam-packed Kelly's Court coming up later today, but we begin with a truly sad and shocking story out of the world of NASCAR as the sports world mourns the sudden, shocking death of 41-year-old NASCAR legend Kyle Busch. Details surrounding his passing remain murky, but here is what we know. According to the Associated Press, yesterday Busch was using the Chevrolet simulator in Concord, North Carolina, that's near Charlotte, when he became unresponsive and was taken to a hospital. His family initially releasing a statement that suggested Busch would not be competing in this week's Coca-Cola 600, writing, quote, Kyle has experienced a severe illness resulting in hospitalization. He is currently undergoing treatment and will not compete in any of his scheduled activities this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We ask for understanding and privacy as our family navigates this situation. Less than 8 hours later, NASCAR, his family, and his racing team releasing a joint statement announcing his death. Quote, on behalf of the Busch family, everyone at Richard Childress Racing, and all of NASCAR, we are devastated to announce the sudden and tragic passing of Kyle Busch, the statement read. Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle, a future Hall of Famer. Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport and fans. His death coming 11 days after, he told his crew over the radio near the end of a race in New York that he needed a doctor to give him a, quote, shot. According to reports, he had been suffering from sinus issues that were aggravated by the G-forces of his job and elevation on the course. He came in 8th that day and was healthy enough last weekend to go on to win the Truck Series in Dover, Delaware. We're going to get to the medical issues in 1 minute. We have a team here to tell us what they think. This is a 41-year-old guy. How do you drop dead of something related to sinuses maybe at age 41? What do they think went on here? We're going to delve in 1 minute. First, though, Busch is survived by his wife, Samantha, and their 11-year-old son, Brexton, as well as their 4-year-old daughter, Lennox. That is just awful. A little 4-year-old, an 11-year-old. That's too young. You know, it's so bad on a couple of levels because 11, what's worse? The 11-year-old who will remember him and will feel this pain acutely, or the 4-year-old who probably won't. That's just too young to have lifelong memory. She may have some vague image, but I'm sure every parent has thought about this. You know, it's like, I've thought about it a million times since my dad died when I was 15, and I feel so grateful that that was long enough for him to make his imprint on me. And you know, for me to know him and for me to have a real human in my mind and my heart that I can remember. I think the same will be true for their 11-year-old boy. But the 4-year-old, I don't think so. I think about it with Charlie's kids all the time. You know, Erica and Charlie did such a good job of videotaping their family. And Charlie, of course, there's reams of video. We all feel like we know Charlie. But there's knowing him as your dad and having memories of him taking care of you. And then there's knowing video of him, which it's not quite the same. We all know that. And these poor 2 kids. And Samantha now have to wonder, what happened? Was this preventable? And this guy was a superstar in the world of sports and racing. The NASCAR community says he was truly one of their best. 2-time Cup Series champion. He won more races across the 3 national series than anyone else in history. Known as Rowdy, they called him, or Wild Thing, because he was full of personality. He had these post-race fights and feuds with other drivers. He had a bunch of frenemies in the industry. He was an unforgettable presence on the NASCAR scene. Here's a flavor of him. Watch.
Bob Hypocrisy, ESPN. Were you surprised that Austin could stretch it on fuel? And then, what does it mean, do you think, for Austin to get his first win?
I'm not surprised about anything. Congratulations.
Are you okay with Joey moving forward?
Everything's great. Really looking forward to getting in my race car and getting back here at Phoenix.
Speaking of that, are you glad that this is over and now you can get in the car where you're comfortable and get back to racing?
Everything's great. Really looking forward to getting back into my car and being here in Phoenix.
Is that pretty much what we're going to hear?
Everything's great. Looking forward to getting back into my car.
If you had that 45-point buffer, do you fall back on that? Is it really sticking your mind at all?
It's pathetic to have to lean on insurance. My premiums are going to go up.
Very frustrating, Kyle Busch, understandable.
Got to where we needed it right there at the end and was able to lead all those laps. And if it wasn't for lap traffic, it wouldn't even have been a race. I don't know what y'all are whining about, but if you don't like that kind of racing, don't even watch.
Kyle, you overcame some adversity on pit road to work your way back up. Can you talk about how you made your way back to the field?
Pure talent. That's about it. My pit crew did absolutely nothing to help me out tonight. My truck drove like and these splitters are absolutely horrendous. You can't pass in traffic. You can't race alongside anybody. You can't get within 5 truck lengths of no one. But somehow, some way, I was able to get back to the front. Had a blast.
Kyle, what was your thought about Keselowski's little pre-race declaration?
Who?
Brad Keselowski?
Yeah, I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay. He drives the number 12 car.
I saw it, but I passed it.
He's very full of personality and just didn't mince words and was unapologetic about his tough personality on the course. He didn't always get along with his fellow drivers, but he did always show appreciation for his fans. Watch.
What's up? How are you?
I freaking love y'all.
Give me your hat.
I love y'all. You shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm sorry. Oh my god.
Thank
you.
you.
Are freaking awesome.
Good to see you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm so happy you won.
That's amazing. As you guys know, I'm not a huge sports person, but I know enough about NASCAR from 14 years of Fox to know the fans are not kidding around. There is deep commitment and deep love of the sport and the guys who drive the cars. So I feel that woman's joy. I've met so many people who feel exactly that way about Kyle, about NASCAR in general. This was posted by his fellow NASCAR driver, Carson Hocevar. He wrote, "Every day's a privilege, and today's a truly sad reminder of that. This little boy in this picture hated you on Sundays, but he loved to hate you." This is of himself. "And you made it very difficult to hate and not become a fan when your passion for racing showed. When you'd show up to his hometown to race at his home tracks, he'll be forever grateful for that. From a fan to a hater to a competitor to a teammate and to even maybe a friend." I share that story because this little kid in the picture was not anywhere near the true number that you impacted for the better just through racing. You will be deeply missed both on the racetrack, but certainly off. Rest in peace. Despite all of his success, he never took winning for granted. There's this video. He's said it before. This wasn't the only time he said it, but it is pretty ominous that he said this just last week in a comment that now seems prescient.
Kyle Busch, your 69th victory in this series, your 5th right here. Why do these moments never get old, Kyle?
Because you never know when the last one is, you know, so...
Did he know something? You know, he had been struggling with this sinus thing. He did need a doc to come see him at the end of that one race. Did he have a sense of foreboding? You know, does a man know when he's about to die? On some level, do we know? You know, and it's not like you could ask the same question if it's a car crash or a plane crash, God forbid, or something like that. But when it's an illness, like a sudden onset illness that's in you, do you know at some level? I don't know. The only thing Kyle Busch was more dedicated to than racing was his family. Here's his post on X from Monday. He died on Thursday. He was wishing his son happy birthday. Happy birthday, Brexton Busch. Your mom and I are so proud of who you're turning out to be. You're the best kid on and off the track. You amaze us every day. Keep doing what you're doing, and there is no limit to what you'll accomplish. Love you, buddy. That's the last X post that Kyle wrote, and it will be the last birthday of his children that he will have had the chance to celebrate. And here's Kyle and his wife Samantha talking about Brexton and Lennox, including how he's teaching his young daughter, how he was teaching his young daughter how to race.
I've seen Kyle change since becoming a dad in many ways. There is a whole nother element when you get to bring your child to victory lane. And that was something so special. Obviously, Kyle started with Brexton as he was little, throwing him up in the air.
You know, being able to teach Brexton about racing and what I love is really, really unique and very cool to me. I feel like there's a lot of finishing touches that you can add to a driver and his character and how he handles situations. So trying to lend that 20 years of experience to a 9-year-old is certainly going to be crucial in his development. And, you know, I feel really blessed and honored to be able to help him with that.
When Brexton won the Tulsa shootout, he literally had tears in his eyes. And that was just so exciting. And it's amazing as his wife to just, see that softer side of him. And I also love not only with Brexton, but Lennox. She's all of 2. We got her a little cart, and Kyle, same as he did with Brexton, just at a much younger age, brought her out and was like, okay, Lenny, showing her the ropes. And it was cute as can be, especially sometimes when she's driving a hot pink Barbie car and Kyle's jogging after her, and you're like, he's a great dad.
The video is well worth watching if you're listening. You can check it out on our YouTube. Kyle and his wife Samantha were also philanthropists, operating the Samantha and Kyle Busch Bundle of Joy Fund, which helps couples with infertility issues after the pair had troubles of their own in that department. He is going to be deeply missed, of course, by his family, but also by the whole NASCAR community, now mourning one of the most accomplished drivers in modern history. So how exactly is it that what's been reported to be a sinus infection or a sinus-related illness potentially morphs into a cause of death at 41? We don't know the cause of death. I'm just saying that that's the only illness he was suffering from that we know about. And 41 is supposed to be one of those ages where no matter kind of what you're going through when it comes to illnesses you can contract, whether it's a stomach bug or a cold or a flu or a pneumonia, you're not supposed to die. You're not supposed to die at 41. Joining me now to discuss it is Bob Lahita. He's a doctor. He's a clinical professor of medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, and a guest of yours truly many times back in the Fox days. And Dr. Dirk Perritt as well. He's an emergency room doctor and CEO of MD Health Pathways. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, says Washington politicians are always getting in your wallet, and that now they're messing with your credit card. They say your credit card and the security it offers are under attack, and that Senators Dick Durbin and Roger Marshall want to change the nation's payment system to benefit corporate megastores like Walmart and Target at the expense of everyday Americans. Credit cards can keep your payments secure and provide rewards that families use to help make everyday purchases more affordable. The Electronic Payments Coalition says the Durbin-Marshall mandates would let corporate megastores cut corners on credit card processing, routing transactions over cheaper, untested networks with weaker security and fewer protections. Find out more at guardyourcard.com and consider telling Congress to guard your card. Doctors, thank you both so much for being here. What a crazy and disturbing story. I kind of can't get past it. Dr. Lahita, let me start with you. What do you make of what we know so far? Just the calling of needing a doctor for a shot, we are told, related to a sinus infection about a week or so ago, and then being found unresponsive yesterday. So it seems like he was out. He was in a simulator. He wasn't in bed, I can't function, and clearly had some sort of an event where he died.
It's a tragic story beyond belief, and our condolences go to the entire family. But when you talk about a sinus problem, the first thing that comes to my mind is congestion. Now, you can have congestion from a variety of reasons, some of which are cardiac. A 41-year-old who drops dead, one has to think of a cardiac cause. So he could have been in congestive failure, heart failure, and that may have resulted in his feeling of congestion in his nasal passages. The other thing is that I thought of when I heard this was pulmonary embolus, which is a sudden cause of death, which is a blood clot that goes to the lungs and stops you from breathing. Now, might have had micro blood clots that were throughout his pulmonary or lung system. And the third thing that I thought of was aneurysms. That's the explosion of a blood vessel, a large blood vessel like an aortic vessel. That's least likely. And then when we get into the rare stuff, as in my subspecialty, which is immunology rheumatology, we think of vasculitis. Vasculitis can cause a chronic sinus infection. It's very, very rare to have somebody die from that. That's inflammation of the blood vessels, of the nasal passages, and large blood vessels going around the heart. And a condition called myocarditis, which is inflammation of the muscle, would cause congestive heart failure in general, and a heart attack, which would result in sudden death. Those are the things
we all know about myocarditis and from the COVID pandemic. Yeah. Some people who got COVID suffered from it, and some people who got the vaccine were killed by myocarditis. It happened a lot with young men, teenage men in particular, teenage boys. That's dark to think about, and I'm sure all of that would be reflected on an autopsy?
Yes, definitely. An autopsy for a sudden death like this in a 41-year-old is mandatory.
Okay. Dr. Perritt, what do you think? You're an ER doc, so you would have been exactly the kind of doctor who would have had to deal with this had they, gotten him to an ER prior to being pronounced dead.
First of all, my heart goes out to the family. He has 2 young children. I've got 3 daughters. I saw the video of him riding on the 4-wheeler with his kids on the track, and I just know how much that family is going to miss him. So my prayers go out to him. I can walk you a little bit through how an ER doctor thinks. So we when you come into the ER, we're tasked with thinking, what is the worst thing that can cause this? And like you said, a 41-year-old should not die. And when you think about what can kill a 41-year-old, it's going to either be your heart or your brain. And when you think about sinus, what can masquerade as a sinus infection and ultimately be a cause of death, there's a couple of things. One's what's called CVST, central venous sinus thrombosis. Very rare condition. Probably have only seen it about 5 times in my career, but it presents with sinus pain, sinus pressure. You think you have a really bad sinus infection. And what's really going on is you've got a lot of inflammation kind of in your sinus area, a bacterial infection, and ultimately causes a clot in the blood vessels that drain the sinuses. And so when that clot forms back behind your sinuses, the blood can't drain and ultimately creates a lot of pressure on the brain and ultimately a bleed. And that head bleed obviously can cause death. So that's one rare cause that can masquerade as like a sinus infection. The other thing is some people call sinus infection upper respiratory infection. So if he truly just had upper respiratory type symptoms, just like Dr. Lahita said, the cause of death could be something like a myocarditis or a heart infection or a very severe pneumonia leading to respiratory death. But as an ER doc, when you come in to the hospital and you look well and you're a 41-year-old, we think that you probably are well and don't think of these rare instances and rare causes. And there's very specific types of testing to identify these types of conditions that aren't typically done unless we have a high suspicion or you look very ill.
Dr. Perritt, let me ask you a question. We had friends who had to bring their family member into the ER for a sinus infection where their family member started to feel like they're starting to black out. They thought it was just a sinus infection, but then it was clearly an emergency situation. So they brought him into the ER, and it became very clear to the ER docs that there was something wrong with his brain. And it turned out he needed emergency brain surgery. And my understanding is they believe that this sinus infection had somehow traveled to his brain. That might be just be my layperson's description of what I know. But they had to do emergency brain surgery on him. And he would have died if they hadn't done, it was all related. So could this have been, like, is there some sort of sinus infection that can travel to the brain and cause death if not detected?
Yeah, great question, Megyn. So your brain and sinuses are very closely in proximity. And so anytime you get a sinus infection, there's a great barrier between your sinuses and your brain to keep your brain from getting that same infection. However, there are blood vessels that are very close, and in some people, that infection can spread to the bloodstream, can make its way to the brain, can cause things like meningitis, can cause an abscess, can cause a blood clot.
That's what I think it was, an abscess.
Yeah, and those have to be surgically addressed immediately. Otherwise, they could lead to death.
Could that be consistent with what you're hearing, with like him having symptoms and then the day of, like, going out and about, like not in bed, like maybe just thinking it's a sinus infection, I'm going to function?
When you're a tough guy like Kyle Busch, you can take a lot of pain. And so I am certain a young, healthy guy like this that sits in that car and is an athlete was minimizing his symptoms. Probably a normal person would have sought care more quickly, sooner. But here's a tough guy that's used to putting up with pain. And so by the time he got to medical treatment, he was probably in a very severe condition. And if it was an abscess, if it was a blood clot, it may have been too late to intervene at that time.
I mean, before I go back to Dr. Lahita, now I have everybody in the audience who gets sinus infections worried about whether it's going to travel to their brain, right? So it's like, how do you know if it's just like a regular sinus infection or something that could be potentially deadly?
Can I answer that? You usually...
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, you usually in a severe sinus infection, which really travels to the brain, you have to have, or you should have, a very high fever. Fever would denote something a little bit more than a chronic sinusitis, which is an inflamed sinus. So a fever that might result as a result of the meningitis that ensues after the bacteria travel to the brain would cause a significant feeling of malaise, fever, weakness, and inability to function. Now, the other thing is if he blew a blood vessel or had a cerebral hemorrhage, that could also cause immediate death. And that would be a tremendous tragedy. This sinus that he had, I'm sure Dr. Perrin would agree, is not something that would be, if it's traveling to the brain, is not something that would be in 24 hours. It usually has to be cooking for a while, and then the high fever would be noted. And I don't know what the injection would have been that he was seeking. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, could it be like a steroid or something to take down the inflammation? I mean, I don't know what kind of an injection you would get for a sinus infection, but I can understand how it would get worse when you're driving so fast, you're measuring it in G's.
Usually an antibiotic, you would think.
So listen to this, you guys. This just came in. This is being reported by TMZ, which has gotten its hands on the 911 call that was made, we believe, by the folks at the simulator facility after Kyle went down, after they determined that he was non-responsive. And there's some description in here of the symptoms that they were observing. Let's listen.
I've got an individual that's shortness of breath, very hot, thinks he's going to pass out, and is producing a little bit of blood, coughing up some blood. He is awake. He's awake. He's on the bathroom floor right now.
Okay.
So when you come in, if you could not make it, can you turn the sirens off?
Yeah, that's fine.
When you get here, and so when you come into the main entrance of the building, the closest way to get to him is if you go to the left. Like you'll come in and the parking lot splits to the right or the left. Just tell them to go to the left. I'll be out here waiting on them.
All right, we're just going to play it one more time so you can focus in on the description at the top. I just want to hear that one more time.
I've got an individual that's shortness of breath, very hot, thinks he's going to pass out, and is producing a little bit of blood, coughing up some blood. He is awake. He's awake. He's on the bathroom floor right now.
Okay.
So when you come in, if you could not make it,
okay,
can you turn the siren?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
So there's some details in there. I mean, that's exactly, Dr. Perritt, this is what you would get from the EMTs who would have brought him into you. What did you glean from that description?
Yeah, this shifts our focus to a respiratory issue. So he's fever, short of breath, coughing up blood, highly suspicious for a severe pneumonia at this point. And there are a couple of strains of pneumonia in young people that can cause a rapid decline. So when we heard originally that he had sinus symptoms, he may have meant that I just have an upper respiratory infection. I've got upper respiratory symptoms. This paints the picture of a young man that has severe pneumonia. Things like MRSA pneumonia can cause bleeding in the airway, and you can actually suffocate from that blood that you've produced and that bleeding in your airway very quickly. So I think this shifts the thought that this may have been a cerebral issue to a respiratory issue.
Dr. Lahita, what did you hear in there that jumped out at you?
I heard the bleeding from the lung, the coughing up blood, which we know is associated with pneumonia. And I do know that right now I'm seeing a lot of patients with what are called multifocal areas of infection, multifocal pneumonias, very severe pneumonias, causing sepsis, depending on your age. Now, he's only 41, so he can handle that. But I have patients who are in their 70s and 80s who are in the hospital in shock from septic shock, which would definitely kill a 70 or 80-year-old. But a 41-year-old, this is a little unusual. It has to be a pretty severe infection. The other thing that goes back to what I'm thinking is the pulmonary embolus. I have seen so many people, and I'm sure Dr. Perrin will agree, who die from acute pulmonary emboli, and that is a big clot that goes to the lung. And, you know, if these little clots go to the lung before the big one, they cough up a lot of blood. And the third thing is congestive heart failure. One can cough up blood with congestive heart failure and pulmonary or lung edema, fluid in the lungs, lots of fluid. And the hemoptysis.
What would cause the PE? I remember that from my ER watching days. They would dread the PE, you know, and even we would come to know, oh God, it's a PE. What would cause that?
Well, with Kyle's job,
we'll do Lahita and then we'll go to you, Perritt.
Okay, good.
Well, a PE would come from, we call that procoagulant. You can have a deep vein clot in your legs from sitting too long. You can have it from having a disorder of your blood, which is called procoagulation, meaning your blood tends to clot prematurely. We see a lot of that in the hospital. And so that is always a possibility. Pulmonary emboli cause a lot of sudden deaths. You don't have to be old to get a PE. You can see PEs in teens. You can see it in early 20s and certainly in a 40-year-old.
Oh my gosh. But there wouldn't be like advanced notice of a PE, would there, Dr. Perritt? Like, are we, like, if we're going with respiratory and following what you just said, maybe it wasn't a sinus infection. Maybe it was something like a pneumonia that he wrongly thought was a sinus infection. Would that relate to PE?
It can. Anytime you get an infection, it creates an inflammatory state in your body. And so that's a procoagulant. So any type of infection. And then Kyle sits down. He's a race car driver. That sitting position for prolonged periods of time can allow you to develop clots. So it could be that he had some infection. And then because of that inflammation in his system and sitting down in a simulator for a long period of time, had developed a clot in his leg and broke loose and suddenly caused an embolism to the lung. So it's really hard to say without having imaging, a CT scan. But if he came into my ER, he'd be getting a CT scan of his chest, looking for both pneumonia, both PE, to try to identify the cause.
Are you surprised to hear the caller say he's awake? Apparently, if you listen to the whole thing, he says it 3 times. He is awake, he's awake, he's awake. We heard the part where he said he's awake, but he's on the floor. So he was conscious and having symptoms. And I don't know, it feels like, I don't know, it's just my frustration. Should have been savable. How can you, if a PE was the problem, would that not be savable? You know what I mean? What could it have been that would have killed him from the time of the simulator to the time he presumably was taken to the ER on our list of suspects, Dr. Perritt?
Yeah. So Most PEs, it's very rare to die at 41 of acute PE. The treatment that we have today, we can give you blood thinners. We can go in there and grab that clot. We can do an embolectomy, get you over there and remove the clot. However, if you filled up your airway with fluid, blood, and you can't oxygenate, even if we put you on a ventilator, and this is due to a pneumonia or an infection, and we can't oxygenate you because your lungs aren't functioning, they're full of infection, they're full of fluid, they're full of blood, that can cause death unless you get on ECMO, which is a way to bypass the lungs and still oxygenate your blood. That could cause death.
Mm. Dr. Lahita, would it be a standard practice in a case like this, do you think, if he comes in and says, I think I have a sinus infection, I'm all stuffed up, I'm in pain in my face, to do a lung x-ray, which is, I know that would be the standard if you suspected pneumonia.
That's correct. Yes, pneumonia, you'd listen to the lungs carefully. You would do a complete cardiac exam. You would really get the picture. And I don't know if he had a physician that was frequently examining him. Most athletes of his caliber are followed medically fairly assiduously.
Well, and there was that one doctor 11 days before he died who gave him a shot of something and knew he was ill. He was talking about it. I've heard the audio of him in the car. So clearly there was medical care involved in some way.
Yeah. Now, I don't remember, Megyn, did they say he had a fever? The guy that was on...
They said he's very hot.
Yes. Okay.
He's going to pass out. Shortness of breath. Blood, he's coughing up blood and is awake on the floor. Yeah, very hot.
That's suggestive of an infection, as Dr. Perritt and I believe, that suggests that he could have had pneumonia, severe pneumonia, because you don't, with a blood clot, that's a significant blood clot, a pulmonary embolism, you don't usually have a high fever at the outset. I mean, it takes the pneumonia, the infection that's causing all of this, to really cause problems. And it's likely that the doctor, a couple of days earlier that gave him a shot of an antibiotic. Which doesn't cover it. I mean, if he's that severely ill, he should have been in the hospital on IV therapy, IV antibiotic therapy, because he probably was septic. And sepsis with a high fever, coughing up blood, that's imminent death unless treated aggressively.
That's awful. I don't know any of the details of how far away the center where he was doing the simulator was from an emergency care hospital, or what the level of trauma care they were able to give was. All those details will come out. And did you say it's mandatory for a 41-year-old? Was that just like loosely mandatory or actually mandatory for hospitals to give an autopsy to a 41-year-old?
Mandatory.
So there will be an autopsy.
Yes. I mean, I don't know, Dr. Perritt, how is it in Texas? I know in the New York metropolitan area, it's mandated in a young person who dies.
In Texas, it depends on if you have an explainable cause of death. So if the doctors were comfortable, they knew what caused this, there was no foul play, it is not mandatory, but you have to have an explainable cause of death.
I feel like any spouse, a young woman like his wife is, would want one because they have kids. You want to know, you want to rule out, was this something genetic that we need to be testing for in the next gen? And so we need to be on alert for it. I'm sure she's not thinking entirely straight, but I think whenever your spouse would die suddenly of a medical thing, you'd be worried about your children too, and just ruling things out. It's such an awful tragedy. Guys, thanks so much for pinch hitting on short notice and offering your expertise to us and our viewers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Wow, say a prayer. Say a prayer for that grieving family. Sudden death is just so awful. It's so awful. It's like for the person who goes, we all kind of hope will go suddenly, right? It's like, I mean, for the rest of the people out there, that's not going to happen to any of us listening. Dying, we're just going to stick around. But for the family, it's just so painful. There's no chance to say goodbye. There's no chance to acclimate yourself to the possibility of one going. And when there's children involved, just so much acute pain for the mother to deal with their grief, being a single mom in a minute. Look at this guy. He's like a strong, tall, professional athlete, fierce, the way he would battle rhetorically and take no, what. Like, I'm sure she's used to being protected by him. I'm sure he was the alpha figure in the family. And now he's gone, and she's going to need a lot of support. And bet you anything she's going to get it. The NASCAR family's very close. And I'm sure the fans are just wondering what they can do. Maybe we'll start a GoFundMe or something to help. I'm sure they weren't hurting for money, but there's got to be some way of sending her and the kids our love. It should start with prayer. Thank you all for tuning in and listening to that. We're going to move on to other news because we do have a whole show lined up for you on Kelly's Court. And we have just gotten ourselves a hold of some exclusive video in connection with the young Scottish man we told you about yesterday, who was stabbed to death by a man in England who said he was allowed to carry this amazing, terrifying knife thanks to his religion, and did, in fact, stab this 18-year-old young man with it. The cops came. The stabber claimed that he was the victim. He accused the victim of shouting some sort of racial epithet at him, of which there is zero proof. And as this young man lay dying, the police told him he wasn't, that he hadn't been stabbed. They didn't know anything. And did his assailant cry out, "No, he has been stabbed. I'm sorry. It was an accident," or it was self-defense, which is what he's now claiming as that case is on trial this minute in the UK. No, he didn't. He kept his mouth shut. There's been almost no photographic evidence of the alleged perpetrator here, the defendant. Somehow he's all been scrubbed from the internet. Well, we've gotten our hands exclusively on a video that shows him up close and personal with not one, but two knives, one of which appears to be a sword. I mean, a long sword, like an épée. And we're going to show it to you next. Hey, thanks for watching today's full episode. If you're new here, throw us a subscribe. See what you think. Stay in touch. There's plenty more goodness where this one came from. As always, we really do value your feedback. So email me too, Megyn, Megyn at megynkelly.com, or just leave a comment down below. I do read them. I meander over and I scroll through and I find them very entertaining and really appreciate the feedback. But in any event, join the community by becoming a subscriber so you miss nothing. We value your support. We may not always agree on positions, but as you know, I'm very open-minded to people who disagree with me. That's how I learn. So thanks. And thanks for trusting us to always talk about it openly, honestly, and with provocative conversations. Let's talk about an uncomfortable reality. What happens financially to our loved ones once we are no longer here? We put off thinking about it for obvious reasons, but the best thing we can do for our family is to ensure that they are not left with a financial burden of mortgage, tuition, medical bills, all of it. Fortunately, taking steps to financially protect your family is easier nowadays than it used to be. And that's where Ethos comes in. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and even get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam, and all you need to do is just answer a few simple health questions, and boom, Bob's your uncle. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. You get the lowest rate from their network of trusted carriers, with some policies as low as $30 a month. It's no wonder why Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/MK. That's ethos.com/MK. Application times may vary. Rates may vary too. We are jumping into Kelly's Court now. There's a lot on the docket today. We're going to cover the latest in Murdoch. There's been a massive update in that J.P. Morgan case where that guy is accusing Lorna Hajdini of sexually harassing and even forcing essentially sexual assault on him. Lots to tell you there. We've got Luigi Mangione, and we're going to get into Henry Noak in the UK in our video that we want to show you with our panel. Here to break down the hottest legal stories are Mark Eiglarsh and Jonna Spilbor. They are hosts of the brand new show, Positively Legal, which you can find on the MK True Crime channel, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube at youtube.com/@MK True Crime. Mark, Jonna, welcome back. We have a short time here before the end of the hour, and I just want to kick it off with the most bizarre story on the internet. It's not legal, but you might have thoughts. It's this mask guy, alleged mask guy. I know you've seen it. He went on Fox News, and his name is Robert Harward. He is of CENTCOM, formerly of CENTCOM, Central Command in the Middle East. He's a military guy. And he was speaking to my old pals, Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino, on my old show, America's Newsroom. And that video has now gone super viral because if you focus on his neck right above his shirt, it very much looks like the bottom of a mask that is detached from the skin. I don't know what else this could be. There's some speculation by some online saying maybe it's a shadow. It doesn't look like a shadow to me, but it's kind of hard to swallow mask. We have other video of this man from other hits he's done. And I will say he looks a little smoother in his America's Newsroom hit than he does in some of his other videos. So it's like, I don't know, maybe I have no idea why he would be in a mask. At first I saw it and I said, this is some crazy conspiracy theory. People are nuts. But it's gone so viral with so many people who I consider legitimate reporters, non-conspiratorial people saying, what in the hell is this, that we got to talk about it. Any thoughts, Mark? I saw you shaking your head yes or nodding your head yes. What do you make of it?
It's just bizarre. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, the first thing is I thought it was a given that it was a mask, and then you're raising, well, it could be a shadow. I'm like, oh wait, let's give him the presumption of innocence here. Maybe it's not a mask, and if it's not a mask, then what the hell are we doing talking about it, right? But if it is, that's bizarre.
Wait, well, Viva Fry, who we love, he's a lawyer too. He's a journalist, and he said he thinks it's a shadow. He thinks if you watch this mark, which is horizontal across his throat, right exactly where a mask that you might pull over your head would end, he thinks it's mirroring his lip movements. And I can see what he means there. It is kind of mirroring his lip movements. So I don't know what that tells us, Jonna. I don't know
what we doing.
But Viva's theory is also that somehow it's a reflection of the teleprompter. But Viva, there would be no teleprompter for the guest. You guys have been guests on Fox News countless times. The guest does not get a teleprompter. At best, they get a little camera that they look into. So, and the camera doesn't cast shadow on the guest. So I don't. Maybe it's his shirt causing a shadow. I don't know, Jonna. What do you think?
Well, I originally thought, before I realized that this wasn't Zoom, sometimes Zoom, when it enhances your image, can make things look really weird. But I actually think if it's a mask, this guy's onto something, Megyn. Hear me out. I know this probably doesn't happen to you, but it's happened to me. How many times do you wake up in the morning one day and you're like, oh no, my Botox wore off, right? And then you have TV, right? You've got some big thing. You got a big comment. You're like, shoot. Okay, let me get the mask. Whoop, and until you can get to your Botox doctor.
Objection, unrelatable.
I love it. You can't object.
No, what is that?
It would be so helpful. Wait, we actually pulled video from the internet of somebody putting on an ultra realistic silicone mask.
Yes, I've
silicone
seen those.
ones are
right.
Amazing.
Right.
Watch this. All right, so the listening audience, you got to go to the show at 44 after the hour and look at this. He's putting on his face. He's pulling it to sort of get it on the nose properly. He's putting the bottom neck underneath his T-shirt. He's putting on a cap so you can hide the weirdness. Ew, he looks very creepily real.
Yeah.
You would not,
Look at
you
that.
would not know.
Megyn, in the interest of
You would not
disclosure,
know.
I wanted to say something.
Oh God, don't freak me out. No, ew, you're freaking me out. He's pretending to pull off his mask. Let me tell you something. So the internet was going nuts with this last night, yours truly included. And one of the clips that started to circulate was of I didn't even know there was such a person, the former chief of disguise at the CIA. Coolest job ever. Who doesn't want that job? Her name is Jonna Mendez, and she went on, you know, the singer Jennifer Hudson. She had a talk show for a while, and this woman went on. I mean, like, so random. What? The former CIA chief of disguise was speaking to Jennifer Hudson and talked about how this is absolutely something they do at CIA, a full head mask that you put on over that has like the neck ending. And they used it And she talked about when she revealed it to a former president in the Oval Office. Watch this.
What's the most memorable moment from being in disguise for you?
There were a number of them, but one that has to stand out. I went to the White House and I briefed George H.W. Bush, the president at the time, while I was wearing a full face mask. So we're sitting like this close together, and I'm telling him that I'm going to show him the best disguise that we have. And he's looking for a bag, like, where is it? I said, well, I'm wearing it, and I'm going to take it off. And I reached to start taking it off, and he said, stop. And he got up, and he walked, and he looked, and he looked at it. He didn't know it was a mask. He wasn't sure what I was wearing. He sat back down. He said, okay. So I took it off, and I was holding it up in the air so he could see it. My whole head. It had hair and a face and a neck.
So you could walk around as someone else?
Absolutely.
And that would be the disguise?
Absolutely. That was a great disguise.
Go Jennifer. But
Go
that's
Sally
just
Jesse
a couple
Raphael.
years ago.
Wow. That was
so
bizarre.
random. You can't make it up. But there, for the listening audience, there's a picture of her behind her talking, of her holding her little mask up, like almost like a severed head, sitting in the Oval, and it is not impossible at all that this guy, for some reason, was wearing an actual mask. We just don't know why. Now, if this guy's former CIA talking on America's Newsroom, I think I'd be convinced, Mark. But he's former CENTCOM.
Right. What's his motive?
And he doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't have he's bald. He doesn't need to worry about the hair, the wrinkles.
Maybe he's not bald.
And also, well, unless this isn't him. Like, I think that's the theory by some. So here's an earlier shot of him on a different appearance where he does look a little bit more rugged and less smooth than in this other one on America's Newsroom. But I think the question is, guys, was it actually this man, Robert Harward, on America's Newsroom? Because, I've listened to the audience. Many of them thought that Joe Biden had a lookalike or sort of a stand-in who wore a Joe Biden mask many, many times. And there would be videos on the internet they'd cut where, like, you could see the height differential. We had tons of video of Joe Biden next to Jill Biden. And in a couple of videos, and he was infirm, you'd see him much shorter, like almost her height. And people would be like, whoa, what happened? You don't shrink, by 6 inches. So can we rule it out, or are we just getting pulled into the madness that's in the ether right now with all the aliens coming out and like all the things we were told were bullshit are true?
Right. Bigfoot is alive. We know that now. It's real.
We did a segment on that on America's Newsroom one time too. No. In the doldrums of summer, Eiglarsh, it's hard. It's hard to fill the 2 hours of airtime.
God. Can't we just talk about a murderer?
I know. Something simple to solve. Right. All right, so we don't have answers.
No.
Is that basically where
we don't know?
And we don't know. What's your vote? If you have to vote, what was it, a mask or not? What do you say, Jonna?
It kind of looks like a mask, but if you're that sophisticated where you're going to put on somebody else's face, wouldn't it be a little bit longer? Wouldn't you wear a scarf like a Austin Powers? Do something to cover that up?
Or like an ascot?
Yeah, I'm going with shadow. This is much ado about nothing. Nothing. No.
I don't know if you
really?
watch it.
You don't know?
It moves just like the bottom of a mask. It really does. I guess I'll go with shadow because, Occam's razor, simplest explanation is usually the best. And again, why would this guy be wearing a mask? And his voice sounds just like the voice of the actual Robert Harward in other hits. So I don't believe it was a different person. But will we ever know? He's going to have to put out a statement. I guarantee you we are T-minus like 2 hours from him putting out a statement or doing a hit. He's going to show up and we'll update the audience with that video when it happens. All right, stand by, guys, because we've got so many legal cases to get to, and there's some good ones today. While I have you, it is Friday, and that means it is the one day of the week we send you an email if you are on our list. We don't sell our list like so many others so we can make money off of you. We just send you one email a week, and in it, We give you all the news of the week in 60 seconds or less. If you just want to read the opening bullet points, you'll be up to speed. This week, we're going to give you a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, videos that you may have missed that we think are our best. And there's always the most clicked on item, and that would be Strudwick Brunt, my little red boy who is very, very naughty, though not as naughty as he used to be. He is getting better. So thanks to all of you who told me when he was just a 1 and 2 and 3-year-old lab that if I just waited, he would get better. You never said perfect, and that's good. You didn't totally mislead me. He's not perfect, and I don't think he's ever going to be. But we always put an update on Strudwick in there. And fortunately or unfortunately, to quote our president, he always gives me an update. If you are heading into summer without a medical emergency kit, you're taking a risk most people don't think about until it's too late. Summer colds linger and can turn into sinus infections that last for weeks. Can I tell you, my friend's family member just had one of these that got out of control, actually dangerous. You do have to stay on top of sinus infections. Getting sick right before vacation can derail everything, and when you're traveling, finding a doctor and pharmacy is stressful. But let me tell you about the medical emergency kit from The Wellness Company. It's like an urgent care and a pharmacy right at home. It includes essential prescriptions like amoxicillin and generic Z-Packs to treat a wide range of common and serious illnesses. No waiting for your doctor, no hours at urgent care, no pharmacy lines, no copays. Just match your symptoms to the right prescription in your guidebook or call their telemed doctor standing by. Start on your meds sooner and feel better faster. Order yours online in minutes, and it is shipped to your door. And save $45 with my promo code MK at urgentcarekit.com/MK. That's promo code MK. Go to urgentcarekit.com/MK. Back with me now are the hosts of Positively Legal on our MK True Crime channel. That's a podcast that's called MK True Crime. You can go over there and subscribe and listen to Positively Legal and enjoy. These are our Kelly's Court OGs, Mark Eiglarsh and Jonna Spilbor. Check out mktruecrime.com to find out all the platforms that they are on and how to subscribe. By the way, new episodes of Positively Legal drop every Wednesday. We call it Positively Legal because these two happen to be like these crushing killer lawyers who are actually always affable and can always find the positive in a situation. And it's a fun show. Here's just a little. We pulled a soundbite just so people can get a flavor of what they might find on Positively Legal here in SOT 20.
You know that you are so busy and stressed when you get a text from your Botox doctor checking on your well-being, which I did, by the way. My Botox doctor's like, hey, everything okay? Like, he literally did a welfare check because I haven't been there. Why? Because we're so busy. I'm busy, you're busy. And
I have mixed feelings about a Botox doctor. Really? Botox doctor? I mean, he's not your heart doctor. He wants to put more stuff in your face, okay?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. And anywhere else that I'll let him put it. So I miss him.
Good stuff.
Mark, you don't know. Not everybody wakes up gorgeous like you.
Oh, stop it.
The rest of us have to fight for it, Jonna. I support you in having the Botox doctor on speed dial.
I'm going to turn Mark. You know, men are doing it too, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get accused.
They are.
No.
You'd be surprised.
No, I ain't going to do it.
Now, I will never get Doug to do it, but I do know some people in television and even in government who are getting the Botox. And I speak of men. I mean, women, it's like not a shock, but even men. And if they get it done right, you don't even notice. You just think that they look great. You can't tell. But if their like smile ends here, when like their eyes never, then that's where a lot of guys get it. And of course, the famous 11s. That's where
my injections are pickleball.
I'm glad that statement ended where it did. Okay. I want to kick this off with this horrific Henry Noak case. So he's a Scot and he was going to college in Great Britain in the English city of Southampton. He was walking home after a night out with friends. Yesterday, we said this happened in 2023. I would like to correct that. It was 2025. It was December of 2025. He was walking home, first-year college student, studying accounting, from a night out with friends. He had been drinking, but not much. He was not legally drunk. And a man approached him named Vikram Digwa, who is Sikh and dresses in traditional Sikh garb and carries knives as part of that chosen garb. You're not allowed to carry certain knives in Great Britain, but there's an exception if it's for your religion. So, for example, he carried an 8-inch long shastar, which is a knife, as well as a Sikh kirpan, a ceremonial blade. All right, so we're showing a picture of it now and of this particular guy. In the UK, Sikhs are legally permitted to carry a kirpan knife in public as it's protected under religious exemption laws, okay? So the two men had an encounter in which Vikram and Henry exchanged words of some sort, and the next thing we know, Henry gets stabbed 4 times by Vikram. Those facts are not in dispute. That is what happened. What words were said? Whether the stabbing was in self-defense, as Vikram is now claiming in court, we don't know. But that's basically what the arguments are. Unfortunately, Henry is not here to testify in his own defense because he died from those injuries. And the police behavior around his dying moments is absolutely outrageous, and one of the things I believe that made this an international scandal, because it turned out as he lay dying and handcuffed, because his assailant was saying, he called me a racist name. He shouted something racist at me. And the cops believed him, slapping cuffs on Henry. Henry was bleeding out and about to, the reports are, basically drown on his own blood that was filling up his lungs, where he had been stabbed by Vikram. And said, "I've been stabbed," to the police, who said, "I don't believe you have, mate." And this poor 18-year-old kid is now dead. So his accused assailant is on trial in Great Britain and is acting the choir boy. It was self-defense. He called me a racist name. I was worried he was going to stab me with my weird knives. And weirdly, it's actually, there's precious little photography or other pictures of this guy, Vikram Digwa, on the internet. We've looked, but we were passed a video by a source that shows the defendant in his Sikh gear, and he's got the one knife across him. There's this one sort of, I don't know how you describe it, but like it's a knife that sort of cuts in half. It's like, it has a 90-degree angle on it. I mean, it's absolutely lethal looking. And in this particular video, I think you'll see that knife, or at least a strap to it, on his chest, along with a sword, the kind of sword that college kids use when they're doing sword fighting. You know, I think they call it an épée. In his other hand. I mean, a full sword walking around the streets of England. And what's interesting to me is you will hear him. They object in the beginning of the video I'm about to show you to him being recorded, which is another thing that allegedly happened during his confrontation with Henry. Henry took out his phone and started videotaping this guy. He reportedly didn't like that. And through one act or another, Vikram, the defendant, wound up with Henry's phone on him. And his mother is accused of helping him hide some of that evidence. Now, if Vikram did nothing wrong, you would think he'd say, "Hey, police, here's my phone and here's Henry's phone." You know, you're going to hear a racial epithet on there. That's not what happened. He didn't tell people. They found the phone on him. But listen here carefully, and you will also hear him objecting to the recording, or his friend. Listen.
Come on! Come, recording him. No, come on, man, please. You got big problem, man. You got big problem. We will see, kurwa. Not nice, not nice, not nice.
Do samochodu, kurwa. Do samochodu, kurwa.
Now, let me tell you something else. My source tells me that this man, Vikram, was known to police. And this wasn't his first brush with them. I find that easy to believe. If he's walking around the streets of England with an actual sword out, it's not sheathed, it's in his hand. He's having yet another angry confrontation with somebody to the point where that person felt they ought to take out their camera and record what this guy was doing. Doesn't mean he didn't kill Henry in self-defense, but it doesn't look good. So let me start with you on it, Jonna. What do you make of this trial? Because it's underway right now. And unfortunately, our friends in the UK have lost their minds when it comes to race, free speech, and even the possibility of a racist thought or word. Here in America, it's not illegal to be a racist or even to say racist things. And believe it or not, that's a good thing, my friends. It's not like we all want to be racist and run around saying racist things, but we don't want to criminalize even the most controversial behaviors or statements. That it crosses over into unlawful if you act on it in the employment context, and that's your motivation for a decision, etc. But over in the UK, you actually can get arrested for like being a racist, having a racist thought or behavior or statement could actually get you arrested over there. And I do believe that's why Henry wound up with the cuffs on him, because they took this guy's word for it. Your thoughts?
Well, it's disgusting. And over here, that would not happen, because over here, if police happen upon a scene and one guy is brandishing or has weapons on his body and another guy is laying in the street bleeding out, the person with the weapons is going to get subdued first, not the victim. So that's number one. Number two, so many facts about this, Megyn, really rub me the wrong way. And for example, I don't care how drunk any college student gets. Do you think that person is going to approach somebody who's wearing knives? I mean, it wouldn't happen that way. So who really was the aggressor here? Who really was the one making the first move? Who set out to possibly stab somebody and make this what could be a false claim of self-defense? I have a lot of questions in this case.
Megyn, Megyn,
Mark,
Megyn,
the police say
there's something major we're leaving out. To me, this is everything. And I'm so glad that both of you didn't say it, so I get to say it. I don't know what the facts are, but I do know that there are stab wounds to the kid's legs, his hind legs, which would indicate that he was turned away from this guy. End of story on self-defense.
Yes, because police say that Digwa, the defendant, was, quote, aggressively pursuing Henry. Aggressively pursuing him, leaving a trail of blood. After the first attack, Henry tried to flee, but was pursued and further assaulted, being stabbed 4 times, Mark. So you're right. It's a great point. But he's in court right now claiming, and of course Henry's not there, claiming Henry called him a racial slur and that he was worried Henry was going to grab his his knife. I'm focused on America. His knife and stab him with it because Henry was drunk and verbally aggressive. And I guess in this guy's story, in the mood to commit an assault on this poor, innocent Sikh.
Okay, it is so predictable. And maybe it's because Jonna and I do this work all the time. You start with a guy who's not going to say, okay, you got me. I stabbed the college kid because I'm aggressive and I've got issues and I didn't like the way he was looking at me or maybe something that he said. He's not going to say that. He knows he's going to the pokey for years if he does. So, let's go to the playbook. Let's add in something that's the worst you could say about someone, especially in that country, apparently. So he made some of these racial remarks about me. Aha, let's shift it over and make him the criminal. And we'll also say, he's unarmed, but he was going to use my weapon and harm me. Aha, okay. And it worked so effectively. This guy played law enforcement like a fiddle because to this guy who's got injuries, he's dying, he's bleeding out, they put handcuffs on him. If that happened here, people would be looking for a new job for sure and maybe would find themselves in the pokey.
Yeah, and they didn't put handcuffs on Vikram, the defendant, Jonna. It's so outrageous. They took his word for it that a racial slur had been uttered. They put handcuffs on the man who was stabbed and down. They clearly didn't identify or examine him to see whether his claims of having been stabbed were true, because they were true. And they were telling him that they weren't. A postmortem, reports News Nation, found that he suffered 4 stab wounds and a cut to his jaw, with 2 of the wounds, as Mark points out, to the back of his legs. Now, I can see how maybe they wouldn't find the back of the legs if it hadn't bled through, if it whatever. But like, you do a cursory examination before you decide whether the man needs medical help or not. Mm-hmm. And they weren't interested at all. So like, Elon Musk is threatening right now, or offering right now, to fund the wrongful death lawsuit by Henry's family against the UK police. I mean, separate and apart from the legal liability or the guilt or innocence of Vikram, there may be something there in the civil courts.
There very well may, because it's absolutely ridiculous that you're handcuffing somebody who's bleeding out and dying. And what did the police do, I'm wondering? When they approached the scene, did they just say to the defendant, hey, you know what? Can you just put that knife in your back pocket for me? Can you not wear it around your neck while we're processing this poor guy who's about to die? Like, how? I don't understand how that works. And maybe because I'm not familiar with how they do things over in the UK, but it would never happen here. NYPD walks up to somebody who's wearing a couple of knives around his neck. That guy is going down. That he might not get back until they figure it out.
And by the way, Megyn,
you got a full sword?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. I don't know if he had it that night, but like, he clearly walked around with it. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of this guy, the victim. If I see a man walking down the street holding a knife outward, one that could kill, I might be taking photos. I might be videoing, because that would look to me so unusual that I would think something's about to go down. That's all I'm saying. Call me a racist. Maybe I just don't
especially
understand
in the UK.
that that's a religious thing. Okay, kill me, for that. But I would probably think, oh my,
don't say that.
Right, something's about to happen, and I'm going to pull out my phone and keep an eye on him.
No, you know what I would do?
He was reportedly Henry.
Get out of there.
Henry was reportedly speaking to friends on Snapchat. That's why he had the phone. I guess that it was like a FaceTime kind of situation. When he came across Digwa, they did exchange words. Noak is heard saying, "In it, bad man. What bad man? You're a bad man. Say you're a bad man. Go on." Digwa responds, "I am a bad man." And Noak replies, "Are you a," and this is the only way I've seen it reported, B ... before the footage cuts off. And I don't know what that means. I have no idea what B stands for or what he was asking, and I haven't seen it fully reported.
Bitch.
Police were called to the scene.
Bitch?
Maybe, but that, like, no one's printing out the word bitch, I think they might just be able to tell that he said some word beginning with B. I have no idea. But police were called. They arrested Noak, and Digwa claimed he'd been racially abused. His brother, Digwa's brother, says, "We've just been attacked by someone racially. We got attacked racially by some white person." The brother says, "He physically attacked my brother. We're Sikhs. We wear turbans, and he attacked my brother." The police body cam footage was shown in court. Noak repeatedly told officers, "I've been stabbed. I can't breathe." They put handcuffs on Noak, who was lying on his side. He was saying, "I'm stabbed." The officer told Noak he was under arrest for suspicion of assault. He said, "I've been stabbed." A male voice says, "I don't think you have, mate." Digwa, the prosecutor says, did not seek help for Noak. Instead, he accused him of being a racist and being drunk. After he collapsed, police started rendering aid. Digwa now wants you to believe this was all self-defense. If it were self-defense, wouldn't he have said that in the moment? Jonna, wouldn't he have said, "I stabbed him because he was going to stab me"? Wouldn't he have said, while the guy was lying there dying and his assault charge was turning into a murder charge, he has been stabbed. He has been stabbed. The guy's in handcuffs. He knows he's not going to get away with this shit. Mm-hmm. So, he behaved like a man who had consciousness of guilt.
He led with, he made a racial slur. He led with, he made a comment about my turban. It reminds me a lot of, that's the buzzword that he knew he needed to say, like, hands up, don't shoot. Like, that kind of stuff was going on, and he just spewed it out, and the police bought it hook, line, and sinker, and now we have a dead kid. So yeah, it's disgusting.
He says to the police, he came at me. He barged into me. I was racially and physically abused by Henry Noak. I was petrified as he pulled out his phone to record his attack. But you know what's not in evidence, Mark? Any video of Henry Noak saying anything racial whatsoever, or friends who had been listening to him prior on Snapchat taking the witness stand to say, yeah, I did hear him use a racial epithet and referring to these two Sikh guys. None of that. There's been no evidence other than the defendant who's worried about going to prison.
Yeah, I suspect that might not be true. But putting it aside, let's just say, as you said earlier, let's say, because even a prostitute can be raped, and even someone who is a racist, hypothetically, and we're not saying he is, can be, can walk on the street and not have issues, right? And doesn't deserve to be stabbed. But I keep focusing on, okay, one guy had the knife. The guy who's walking down the street, the alleged perpetrator, is walking down the street. How does he fear that the victim is going to get a hold of his knife? Because that's what we're talking about. The moment before stabbing, did the perpetrator reasonably believe death or great bodily harm? And you can say, yeah, I believed he was going to get my knife. How, though? How was he going to get it? You had it. It's not like he was grabbing at it and he took it. Be detailed. How was he going to do that? Not just in theory he could get my knife, so I just stabbed him. And I think that that's at best what the guy's claiming.
Well, there's more to the story because there are some key videos. It's not like our Florida courts, God bless you, Mark, where we have the sunshine law and then we get to see everything that happens. Over in the UK, you see nothing. So they're not releasing even the evidence publicly, at least for now. So I only have descriptions of the videos that they're showing to the jury. But apparently there was a video shown to the jury of Noak scrambling over a fence to try to escape Digwa after he was stabbed. And a separate video shows Digwa and his brother accuse Noak of racially and verbally attacking Digwa, and Noak can be heard denying that. They're like, you called us a racial epithet or whatever, and Noak in his dying declaration denies it. Digwa is heard saying, no one stabbed you, bro. You're something up, I presume effed up. You're drunk. Meanwhile, he knows full well he stabbed him. That's not even in contention in the court case. But in the moment, he's trying to tell the man he stabbed that he didn't stab him. And the dying man is saying, I'm stabbed and I did not call you anything racial. Another video was played to the court in which Digwa's father was there. He was traveling around, I guess, with his whole family, saying he's pretending. A minute ago, he was talking to you guys. Now he's trying to get up and going to leave. Throughout the video, Noak can be seen lying on the floor as Digwa's family and neighbors tell him to sit up. And listen to this. 2 days after the murder, reports the Southampton Times, police covertly recorded a conversation that took place between Vikram Digwa and his brother Gurpreet. And a transcript of it was read to the jury. At one point, the defendant's brother tells him, quote, you should say it was self-defense. I mean, this seems open and shut to me. And I'd be willing to go that far, Mark, if it weren't for the crazy attitudes about race in the UK.
Agreed.
Where they've truly gone nuts.
But it's how the prosecutors handle it. They need to say there's no evidence of him using any racial slurs. But let's just say he did. That's not what we're here for. He's not being prosecuted for that. The issue is whether it's self-defense. And when you've got stab wounds to the back of his legs, they can't justifiably say that occurred. There's just no way.
He's now claiming, Vikram, the defendant, that Henry punched him and pulled his hair. And that's why he believed that he was, quote, going to stab me. I thought I had to do something because I was afraid he was going to stab me with my own kirpan.
Right.
He told the court he was walking to fetch some curried chips from a car when he met Noak coming the other way.
That may be
Seemed
true.
like he was drunk, barged into me, turned around and said to me, you could have moved up a little bit more. Said he then used a racially offensive term before adding, do you think you're a bad man? I'm from Essex. You don't know what people from Essex are on. That Noak started to videotape the defendant. I went to block the phone. I grabbed it as well. This is when he punched me. He pulled my turban. All of this would be on camera. It would be on the video recording. the jury would have seen or heard some of that. And Jonna, not only do we have the brother saying, say it was self-defense, and the father being like, you're fine, nothing happened to you, as his son has just stabbed somebody 4 times. But the mother is also on trial because she's accused of hiding the knife. She allegedly hid the murder weapon for her son, which I'm gonna guess, never tried a criminal case, but I'm gonna guess probably had some blood on it.
Yeah. This is a family that wants to lie together to avoid being found guilty in this case. I want to go back to the point that Mark made earlier with the knife wounds on the back of the victim's legs. Here's why. Because first of all, if this defendant is so much of a little bitch that he thought pulling hair would justify lethal force, then he's got another problem. But this is different than somebody who shoot someone as they're running away. Now, if you shoot someone as they're running away, the threat is probably over, and you too will be prosecuted for that. But if you stab somebody on their back side, you have to physically be pursuing that person if they're running away. You don't just get to stand there.
And there's video.
Right. So
there's video of him running over, trying to get over this fence with this guy continuing pursuit.
This defendant could not have been in fear at that point, and I'm going to guess at any point, but he could not have been in fear of bodily harm at that point. If somebody's running away and you have the knife and you have to go after the person who you say you were in fear of.
Yeah,
I really hope they do the right thing.
Those stabs to the legs further evidences anger, not fear. The guy was angry.
He didn't get
again, in the civil suit that's inevitably coming, I'm sure. I don't know UK civil law when it comes to wrongful death suits, but assuming theirs is like ours and you can bring one, the cops are going to have to answer for whether they did know this guy, Vikram Digwa, whether he was known to law enforcement, and whether there'd been other incidents like the one I just showed you that we got our hands on, showing him angry on the street with multiple knives, including a sword in his hand, a long sword in his hand, unsheathed. And why, if that's so, when they approached this scene, they didn't give the victim the benefit of the doubt. Why did they jump to accept this guy's word and not that of the man who was lying on the ground bleeding? And the answer, of course, is skin color. It's very obvious. The UK has got a pattern now of this. The way this case turns out matters, and we're all going to be keeping a very close eye on it. Okay, let's move on. Something a little lighter, not for the poor woman being accused of this stuff, but for us. This poor woman at JP Morgan Chase, Lorna Hajdini, has had her reputation ruined by what I think is some sort of wacko psycho. That's my opinion. We've been covering the story, so the audience has a working familiarity with it, I think. But just for those who don't know, these two worked at JP Morgan Chase together. They're high up, bankers, getting well paid, I think. And this guy is Indian as well, of Asian descent, and she's white. And he alleges that she engaged in sexual abuse and racial bigotry, and that she was his supervisor. She denies every single part of that. Racial abuse, sexual abuse, and that she was his supervisor. It's a true he said, she said. His tale is so bizarre and detailed and crazy that if it's true, she's a psychopath who should never be employed by anybody again. Her response is, every word of it is a complete lie, a malicious lie. We never had anything approaching a sexual encounter. I've never even been to half of the places he mentions in his complaint. I wasn't his supervisor, and there's something seriously wrong with this man. And now she has fought back. One of the questions we were wondering is, like, if somebody, just think about it, if somebody who was in your company or your law firm made the craziest ass allegations about you, like that you committed rape on them, and like were this lunatic at every turn trying to sexually harass them and coerce them into sexual acts against their will, you'd sue them for defamation. You'd be like, this is so effed up. The problem is, generally, you can't sue for defamation when the allegations are simply made in an HR complaint or in a legal complaint that gets filed with a court. And that appears to be the case here. But she's she's filed a defamation lawsuit now anyway. And she said some of these things. These are all lies, all of them, and they're malicious lies. They were told with malice, which you tell me, Mark, but my understanding is that's how you get around the general rule that you can't sue somebody for their legal pleading. Because if you can allege they did it with actual malice, then you can.
That's the lane, and hopefully that's a lane that she can pursue. I am not as confident as you. I don't know. It sounds to me like it's been made up. The story is absolutely bizarre, but I don't know. So I go to what can be proven. She, in her answer, and I read through that very carefully, she's saying things like, I was never even in his apartment when he claims certain things occurred. Okay, we got cameras everywhere now. Does it corroborate what he's saying? Does it support what she's saying? If it's just he said, she said, then there's something wrong. It's more likely that it didn't occur if there's not a single witness, a text, an email, a person, a busload of nuns, somebody who can support what the guy's claiming.
Well, I mean, it would be wrong to say there's no one, because now he's submitted 2 third-party witness affidavits to the court. One third party who says it was my apartment where some of these events occurred and I saw some stuff. And one who says I was present on the night in September of 2024 when a sexual assault allegedly took place. They say, I don't have the details in front of me, but basically he's got 2 witnesses now. One says, witness 1, whose apartment it was, that Hajdini invited herself in there, and that the plaintiff rejected Hajdini's sexual advances, saying, I'm not interested. And I guess that both of these
what do you make of that, Megyn?
Witnesses claim that they were eyewitnesses to this.
Are we dismissing those 2?
I don't know, because I don't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am, because I don't know who they are.
Right.
I don't know what kind of credibility they have. And this guy seems like a psychopath to me. I'm happy to come out and say I'm wrong if it turns out I'm wrong. Like you, I don't know. What do I know?
I want to know what
these
Jonna
people.
thinks.
I wasn't there.
Jonna, what do you think? I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
What do you think?
I smell her act. So a couple of things. We don't know the relationship of these 2 friends who gave affidavits. We don't know the relationship to the original plaintiff. You know, the woman is now countersuing. So is it plausible that these people are like, hey, if you win, you cut me in. Here's what I'm going to say. No one's ever going to be able to prove otherwise. That bothers me, number one. Number 2, the thing that bothers me is here's a person who invited these 2 parties up into their apartment where the alleged plaintiff, male, and then the woman were in this other person's bedroom and then fooling around apparently. And then the woman came out and said, why don't you join us? It doesn't make sense. Like if it's your apartment and you're inviting 2 friends in, I guess, and to what? Excuse me, I'm going to go make some popcorn. You guys just use my bedroom, do whatever you want. I'll be out here. That part doesn't add up. She is categorically saying, never been in that apartment. None of this ever happened. I read through her complaint where she says she's never touched the guy. Like, I thought this was going to be all right. Is this another issue of consent? We were in a relationship, but it was all consensual. She's saying, nope, never touched him, never had a relationship with this guy.
What do we know about her lawyer?
Let's not forget JP Morgan. JP Morgan says they conducted an internal investigation because this guy did bring a complaint to HR. So, I mean, I'm sure JP Morgan took this as seriously as a heart attack. Like, this is one of their top executives. They seem to really like her. And so they wouldn't have messed around with this. They would have made sure she hadn't done this, or if she had, that they found out. They say she cooperated fully with the investigation and he didn't. They say she turned over her cell phone, said, I'm an open book, like go look through my emails, look through anything you want. And he didn't. So why didn't his alleged witnesses come forward to the hearing? Why didn't he say, speak to these 2 people? Maybe he did and JP Morgan's lying, but I feel like they might have mentioned that. Why didn't, if he had all these like harassing text messages from her, where are they? Why wouldn't he submit those to JP Morgan and to HR?
So that's what I want to know about, like, his lawyer. Who is his lawyer? Do we know anything about him? Is this guy an ambulance chaser who just wants his 15 minutes? Or is he from a reputable firm who we would think would have vetted this case, particularly because it's probably out of contingency? So he thinks that he's going to get a percentage of whatever is recovered here. So he has to believe in the case, unless it's, again, he's being paid by the hour, but typically contingency.
I don't know,
right?
but I what I do know is that a year earlier, he was on, it wasn't LegalZoom, but that's a similar website to the one he used, where you go on there and you can get a legal document and you can actually get a referral for legal advice. He went on, again, it's not LegalZoom, it's some equivalent website. And he started typing in, I've been the victim of harassment. He said it there by a he, not a she, and at a different bank. He named a different bank. And it was Morgan Stanley, which is not the same as JP Morgan Chase. He said, I'm at Morgan Stanley, which I understand he actually did work at. I'll correct myself if wrong, but I believe he actually did work there. So he's saying it was a guy, I was harassed at Morgan Stanley. How do I file a lawsuit? And then they give you a referral. And I think he found a lawyer off of that website. Now, that could be one of two things, because she's claiming he made these exact allegations before.
Right.
In her defamation case, she's saying he's a serial liar, or at least a serial complainant,
The most
because he made these same allegations
unlucky fella in the world. Everywhere he goes, the women and men both just throw themselves at him.
Can't resist.
Do oral
I
on
mean,
me.
if you've seen a
Here we
picture
go.
of this guy, challenge. Yeah. I don't believe it. But yeah, so she's claiming that he's made these allegations against somebody else at a different bank before. That could be true based on that online complaint, or it could have been him testing his allegations, like putting his allegations against her in disguise onto this website. Because I have to go back and see. It was I think he filled it out while he was already in the employ of JP Morgan Chase, but was fresh off of an employee at the other place. Okay, wait. Now this just in. This is this day, we're getting breaking news on all of our stories in the middle of our stories. Okay. Now Lorna Hajdini, reporting from the Daily Mail, has revealed the sickening messages she received after this guy accused her of making him a sex slave. Her attorneys have entered 3 emails that she recently received into the docket as exhibits to further illustrate the havoc that this guy Rana's claims are having on her life. In one sickening message received on April 30th, a sender whose name is redacted wished vicious harm on her and urged her to commit suicide. I hope you get gang raped to the point you want to kill yourself after you realize what a worthless whore you are. Oh. You effing piece of S, kill yourself. I sincerely hope your family all die slow, painful deaths from aggressive cancers. Wow. It's lovely. I mean, honestly, that's a day in the life here on the MK show, but I understand for civilians that would be awful. 2 other emailers propositioned her for sex, one from May 1st. Your new toy. It reads, my name is redacted, and if you are in need of a slave, I've been searching for a master. That Arab guy is an effing P word, LOL. If all I had to do was F you and do it real good, I'd be the president of Chase, LOL. Every man in America wants to F you now. Hope I get a turn. Another writes, new slave. OMG, you bad girl. Fly me out, damn. You got hips. I want to behind you over the desk. And okay, you get the gist. So this is what this woman's been dealing with. And why is that in there, Jonna, to show us what? That's evidence. I mean, it's not evidence time in her case, but why is her lawyer submitting that?
That she's been damaged, that this caused damage to her reputation. It ruined her personal life. It ruined her professional life. How much longer is she going to have to endure texts and emails like that from random strangers because this case has really gone viral? And if this guy is in fact lying, that's criminal. That's just not something subject, in my opinion, not just something subject to, him having to write her a check or somebody having to write her a check for these kind of damages. If you can ever restore.
What is it? Harassment? Is it criminal harassment?
I'd say at the very least, it's criminal harassment. And, because defamation cannot be criminal. But damn, maybe it ought to be in a case like this because her reputation is completely ruined.
No, but let's talk about it. If this guy, and this is her theory, and to your point, Mark, it's a good caution. We don't know. Me backing her is just what my gut tells me, having read his allegations. But I've been wrong before. I've been wrong many times, so I could be wrong here. But if her theory of the case is right, he has made up the most absurd, vicious lies. I mean, I just pulled a couple of the highlights from his complaint. That she said, if you don't F me soon, I'm going to ruin you. Never forget, I effing own you. If you don't F my brains out tonight, I'm going to sabotage your promotion. That she called him her little Asian appetizer, my curry in a hurry, little brown boy. Fall in line, brownie. I own you, brownie. I own your life, you gook. Brown boy, terrorist, smelly Indian curry man, that the entire team would call him. She allegedly said, I'm still your boss and what I say here goes. Trust me, I own you. If you don't F me soon, I'll ruin you. Never forget, I effing own you.
She doesn't,
that
though.
She
wasn't his
hands
boss. She wasn't his boss anyway.
Before rubbing his neck and head. I mean, This is vile stuff. You want this executive director life? You want to get paid like me? You're going to need to earn it, my little Arab boy toy. That she proposition for oral sex in the office. Birthday BJ for the brown boy, my little brown boy. Don't forget I own you. Don't fight it. You smell so good, she allegedly said 2 days later. I really want to suck your long, black, you know what right now. This could be you one day, referencing senior leaders, as long as you start pleasing me. It's so vile. It's so X-rated.
Yeah.
And then actually includes an allegation that she gave him Rohypnol and Viagra so that she could knock him out but get his unit to work.
Right.
We actually promised the audience an answer to whether or not that's medically possible. It turns out it might be. I don't believe she did it, but it turns out it might be. We reached out to Dr. Zaid Fadul, a Harvard-trained physician, U.S. Air Force flight surgeon, chief medical officer at Wound Care 360, and said all of this would be extremely dangerous and create cardiovascular and neurological risks, but said erectile function drugs can still work despite severe sedation or incapacitation. And this is a crucial medical and forensic point. He says erections come from two pathways: psychogenic, driven by conscious arousal in the brain, and reflexogenic, a spinal reflex at the S2, S4 level that works with conscious input. Rohypnol knocks out the conscious psychogenic pathway, but the spinal reflex arc is reflectively protected from that top-down shutdown. So reflex erections could still happen in a sedated or unconscious person. Again, an outrageous allegation if untrue, even more outrageous if true, frankly. So why wouldn't there be a criminal charge against him, Mark, if all that stuff I just read to you is made up at a whole cloth just to ruin a woman?
Yeah, in theory, there should be. I don't know if there's anything on the books where there is some criminal offense being committed. If he reported this to law enforcement, then there would be, and it's not true, then there would be a crime. What I'm thinking of, though, is Jussie Smollett, right? The details were so extraordinary and so outrageous. Initially, most jumped on the bandwagon and said, well, it has to be true. I mean, and it totally wasn't. And the problem that I have with it is not just what it did in that moment, but what it does for future victims. They have their word questioned more so because of people like this, assuming this guy is lying. So I agree with Jonna. Anything you can do to harm this man in a lawful way is coming his way and is justified based upon the horrific actions that he's taking, assuming he's lying.
You know, Jonna, Adam Carolla was on the air with me when this first broke, and he made a great point, which is if she did this stuff, there's going to be more. That is not the behavior of a one-timer, who just unleashed that torrent of alleged harassment and abuse, including an alleged rape, just on one guy. Just, he was the first one. No way. There should be a line of guys who claim Me Too if this is real. But listen to this, more breaking news. Rana, the plaintiff, now the defendant in the defamation case, the man claiming he was harassed, just gave an interview to some paper called The Juggernaut, which is a New York-based news website that focuses on South Asian news, and says, and I quote, "The biggest thing here is if you call this fake, it's just gender inequality." Says, if the roles were reversed, what do you think would happen? So he's claiming the reason we don't believe him is he's a man, and I will cop to that in part. Chirayu Rana is his name, Chirayu. I will cop to that in part because I believe it is obvious bullshit that, as he writes in this complaint, she went down on him and gave him a blowjob against his will.
Thank you.
And instead of like getting out of there, whatever, he just stood there crying. That's his allegation. Time after time, he was drugged or he was made to cryingly submit his penis for a blowjob by her threats that he wouldn't make it at JP Morgan Chase unless he did this. He's right. I don't believe that. And there is a gender dynamic at play.
And that's what, but that's where the gender dynamic comes in. And I don't mean to sound crass, but it's plumbing. Okay. She's not going to be able to force herself on him. Listen, if that were happening and he wasn't into it, that would be quite obvious. And what was she doing? Throwing Viagra and Rohypnol down his throat and rubbing his, Adam's apple, like you're giving a pills to a dog. Like, how was he consuming those? Like, I don't understand. Why is she going?
Good question.
Why is she going to some stranger's apartment? Why is she throwing herself on a man who clearly doesn't want to, just sits there and cries through fellatio, apparently? Why? And to Adam's point, since we don't have men coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, this crazy bitch did it to me too. Don't you think if she were so abnormal, people in her world would be like, oh, it was just a matter of time. We knew this was going to happen. But like, she seems like a perfectly respectable person. She's had no issues at this job she's been there for 11 years. Like, this kind of thing would leave clues that just don't seem to be there.
Yes, I agree with everything you said. And I think, look, I don't think this case gets dismissed on the papers, right? Like on the pleadings. Unfortunately for her, because she'd love to see it dismissed, like for a judge to read his complaint and say, absolutely not. But it's exactly the wrong kind of case for that. If taken, the way you judge a motion to dismiss is the judge takes the allegations as true and says, if I accept all of them as true, has this person's pleaded a case? Pled and pleaded are both correct. I just like pleaded better. The answer would clearly be yes.
Right.
If everything he wrote is true.
Question of fact.
JP Morgan should have to pay, and a lot, right, and a lot. And so this will get past the motion to dismiss phase. It will go into discovery, meaning both of them are going to have to give depositions. His two witnesses will have to go on the record and have their credibility tested. All of his phone records will be turned over. He cannot keep those secret. We're going to see them all. Metadata, all the location services showing where he was, where she was on the various days in question. That's all discoverable. Even like car data. Most people in New York don't drive, but it's possible they have car data that will be discoverable and will show locations. Like, we're going to learn. There are ways of kind of learning the truth in modern day America, and I think we are going to learn it. So, put a pin in that case for now. Let's keep going. Can you guys stay over a little bit today, or do you have to scram?
I'll hang with you, Meg.
Yeah, I have to scram
Awesome.
in a
Okay.
little bit.
Okay, I'll try not to abuse your time, but we haven't gotten to a couple of cases, and we should. There's Alec Murdoch. So Alec Murdoch gets a new trial. He's convicted of double murder for killing his wife and his son, Paul, 19 years old. And, Paul was 19 and Buster's older. And called a family annihilator. He did it to generate sympathy for himself as his financial world was falling apart. He had embezzled from his law firm. He didn't have the money in like the firm accounts that he was supposed to because he'd been spending it allegedly on a drug habit. The noose was tightening around him on these financial crimes. And in order to make himself look sympathetic, this is the prosecution's theory, we don't know for sure why he did it, he killed his wife and his son. It's a very vile, awful story. But he was convicted, and then it just got overturned because it turned out the clerk of court, this lunatic Becky Hill, decided to make it chit-chat time with the jurors practically every time they walked by her as the trial was wrapping up. She's so sweet. Look how like matronly she looks with her little like doily sweater, whatever. She looks, she's a liar. She's like a pathological liar in my view. She manipulated the jury. The theory was she did it because she was hawking a book. She had a ghostwriter who was writing it with her and she thought she'd make more money. There was actual testimony to this. If the jury found him guilty, she's a psycho. If it, like that was the testimony. So, okay, he got a new trial, which I agreed with. Because you had a juror testify, she did say manipulative things to me about his guilt, and that was one of the reasons I found him guilty. Ball game. That's it, ball game. I don't have to convince my 2 defense attorney friends here of that. But now Alec Murdoch, has filed a civil claim against her, saying you deprived me of my constitutional right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. And he wants her to pay up, saying if he gets paid, the money's not going to go into his pocket. It's going to go into a defense fund that's paying out to his victims. But he does want Becky Hill, or I guess maybe her state insurer, I don't know, to have to pay. How do you like this lawsuit, Mark?
Okay, first of all, this was my rant on the last Positively Legal. It's available on the MK True Crime Network. You want to check it out. I can't stand this Becky Hill. Okay, she knew what she was doing.
Thank you.
She went in there and numerous times, it wasn't just one comment, numerous times said things to jurors that tainted this fundamental due process that we're supposed to have and turned it into crap. So anything you can do to her to harm her further than the 3 years she got, and by the way, 3 years probation, wrong P word, okay? I really do believe that she should have gone to jail for her misconduct, for her perjury, all the things that she did wrong. The lawsuit against her, I don't know about that. I think he should tattoo her name on his shoulder prominently because she gave him a get out of jail free card. Not really, because he's stuck in there for the federal thing. But now
now we
have to say allegedly.
I actually was wondering, like,
allegedly,
were they possibly in collusion? You know, was it possible like this was a deal? Johnny, your thoughts?
Oh, that would be very interesting.
No.
Very interesting theory. I don't think so. I think Becky Hill was really in it for herself. Some of the stuff that came out, that she's having private meetings and, private bathrooms with the 4-person on the jury. And she was literally telling them how to vote. Don't listen to them. That's insane. And this person has a very big role in a court because she's basically the right hand of the judge. You think that she's, mirroring whatever the judge is probably thinking. It was horrible what she did. He deserves a new trial. Will there be a different outcome in the future? That's yet to be seen, but he absolutely deserved a new trial because of her, solely because of her.
Okay. All right, we carry over just a bit on the opposite side of this break. Mark will be here. We'll find out about Jonna. I don't know, she may or may not. Don't get too attached. Don't go away. We have more. When there are supply constraints on commodities, prices surge. You see it with fuel prices, with everything happening in the Strait of Hormuz. And you know what else is a limited commodity? Gold. They mine it out of the ground, and when it's gone, it's gone. Governments cannot just print more of it, and that's why everyone from central banks to savvy savers consider diversifying with gold. If you've been thinking about it for years but have still never moved some of your savings into physical gold, consider Birch Gold Group. Now through May 29th, Birch Gold is giving first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. For details and a free information kit on diversifying into gold, text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Text MK to the number 989898 to see if you qualify for a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to $10,000. Mark Eiglarsh is the co-host of Positively Legal, and he's back with me now. Go and subscribe. Wherever you get a podcast, you can get this one. Just type in MK True Crime, and it will pop up, or you can type in Positively Legal, if that's your thing. All the places you can get it are listed if you just type in mktruecrime.com as well. All right. Mark, great to see you again. Sorry that we lost Jonna, but she had some important court stuff to do. Next case I wanted to get to is what happened in the Tyler Robinson prosecution this week. He is the man accused of murdering our friend Charlie Kirk. And they are having a lot of contention in advance of this trial. It has not gone smoothly. It's a really fierce battle between the prosecution and the defense on virtually every issue. And this week was no different. The prosecution has decided that it wants to conduct it's chosen a preliminary hearing to prove to the court that it has enough evidence to go forward with the charges against Robinson. And that's scheduled. But in advance of it, the defense made a motion. And this is where I want to start. They want the press kept out. They didn't want the press to be able to have access to the courthouse through cameras when the actual trial goes down. They didn't want cameras in the courtroom. And they lost that motion. The judge said, we're going to have cameras. We'll limit how they're used, but we are going to have a camera. Then they said, all right, at the preliminary hearing where the prosecution has to show its cards and say, this is the case that we have against him, and the judge makes a decision about whether there's probable cause to hold this guy over for trial. He's going to. They said, we want the media out for most of that. And the prosecution said, why? They don't get kicked out. Like, the press is there to represent the people. Why would we kick them out? And the argument was that it's necessary to protect Tyler Robinson's right to a fair trial and to avoid contaminating the jury pool in this already high-profile case. According to the court filings and the arguments last week, they argued the media has already created prejudicial and misleading coverage, that some of the evidence expected at the hearing may ultimately turn out to be inadmissible at the trial, and so they don't want the media hearing about it and reporting on it. And then I guess specifically they want us not to have access to alleged Discord and text messages. That's a forum that Tyler Robinson and his trans furry lover, Lance Twiggs, communicated on a lot, Discord. It's like a gaming type social media app where you can talk. Alleged Discord and text messages. Purported confession evidence. Tyler Robinson alleged to have confessed. Surveillance and shooting videos. Witness statements, and other forensic evidence. So what do you think is going to happen? I'll just start with that, because it's not unusual to have the media at a preliminary hearing in a high-profile case. So do they have a leg to stand on?
No. And let me just say this. This is coming from someone who has been on the receiving end of all the things they complain about. I can think of one high-profile case in particular. My client was getting killed in the media, and I'm referring to Scott Peterson, not the one who killed his wife, but is the other one that was accused of not running in to kill the killer at the Parkland Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. And everything that they were printing seemed to be against us. A lot of it was false, and there's no way to stop it. I mean, if media wants to run with a story, they can run with a story. This judge could take some type of action. I don't think the judge is going to, just because the defense is asking for it. And by the way, every time the defense files a motion, as much as we want justice, don't roll your eyes, people. That's what you want. You don't want this case being tried twice. So the defense needs to do all those things on the checklist to make sure to the appellate court they've rendered effective assistance of counsel, so that not if, but when this creep is convicted, this won't come back on appeal.
The thing is, it's always the case that the evidentiary standard used at a preliminary hearing is very different from the one used at the trial. Like, of course, more evidence is going to be presented because the standards are different and easier at the preliminary hearing, and the media always hears that. And the way it's always handled is the media is trusted to write in their pieces, this is just a preliminary hearing, this is just a preliminary showing of what they might try to introduce. It's not the final. And the media, I mean, and the public probably disregards that. We don't know, but this is handleable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's handled in every case.
I'm not saying that the defense's argument is meritless. In fact, like most legal theories, the courts balance. So on one side, the information that is getting out there could potentially make it more difficult to find fair and impartial jurors. On the other side is our right to have access to the truth, our right to see what's going on in our court system. And when you balance that, knowing the history of high-profile cases, how, look at OJ, look at, we can go on and on. There are still people who can say, in spite of what we've seen on TV, we can give the defendant a fair trial. And that's the only standard. So yes, I think that it favors showing people what really is going on.
Look at Casey Anthony.
Oh, sure.
Was there ever a case talked more about than Casey Anthony? There might have been some equal, but I don't think more. Maybe OJ, which was just the biggest of all time.
Right.
But his is another good case.
Yeah.
It was discussed nonstop in the media. Both of those two people were acquitted.
That's correct.
So it is very possible to get acquitted, notwithstanding ubiquitous media coverage. I don't think the defense is onto something here. I don't think the judge is going to allow this. But, it's a very high profile, very sensitive case, so I don't know. Here's the second thing. They argued that the prosecutors worsened the problem of misinformation in the media by giving an interview to Fox News in response to a defense submission that the prosecution felt was misleading. And so this is reference to the bullet casing and the autopsy, which went everywhere. Long story short, the defense filed a motion seeking like the underlying or additional ATF reporting on the bullet fragments and the autopsy that was done on our friend. And in the defense motion, they had language that led a fair, person to conclude the bullet fragment that was found in the body did not match the gun that Tyler Robinson had that day, that it was a non-match, the way they worded it. And this went everywhere. I remember where I was when I read it, like, holy shit, what? It was the headline on the Daily Mail. And before it could get like revised at all, it had already gone everywhere. And it really very much seemed like it was confirmation that that guy's gun, that 30-06 gun from his grandpa, was definitively not the murder weapon. So the prosecution says that is why we went out and spoke with very limited media. And here is the one example that is being objected to by the defendants. They gave a taped interview to a reporter who put it in her package for Fox News, and here it is.
The examiners were not able to find enough detail on the fragments to be able to make a determination as to whether or not they can tie the bullet to the rifle.
So that's just a small snippet. Out of context, doesn't make sense. But it was the prosecution trying to say the fact that they couldn't have an affirmative match with what was left of the bullet does not mean this bullet didn't come from Tyler Robinson's
Like
gun.
saying that there's no fingerprint evidence available doesn't mean he didn't touch a weapon, let's just say. So they're just saying we don't have anything of value to present to the jury to establish the bullet coming from that gun, but we're not saying it's inconsistent with that gun.
Well, the defense is purporting to be hopping mad that the prosecution went out and spoke to the press saying, if you didn't like what we wrote in our motion, you should have filed your own motion. You should have objected to the court. You could have called a request for emergency hearing. You could have handled it inside this courtroom, but instead you ran to the media. And not only was that inappropriate, but it violated rules of professional conduct and the gag order in this case. So we pulled the rules of professional conduct, Mark. And this is what they say. The gag order itself reads as follows. Lawyers in this case shall strictly abide by Rule 3.6 of the Utah Professional Rules of Conduct. What does Rule 3.6 say? It reads as follows. Rule 3.6 prohibits a lawyer from making, quote, an extrajudicial statement, meaning out of court, that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communication, will be, public.
So far, that's what this is.
And will have...
Check. So far.
And will have... Yeah, I agree. So far, they've got them. And will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. So did this have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing this trial in any way?
I don't believe
I
don't believe so, but I would certainly make the argument if I'm the defense lawyer. Point is, stay off the media. Why are you trying your case in the media at all? If the defense didn't raise this in the media, and I don't know all the facts, but let's just say what you said is true. The defense filed pleadings, documents with the court. They didn't go on Fox News. They didn't go out there and do a media tour on their points. They filed something in writing. The prosecution then should just file something in writing and we keep it in court. Them running to Fox News, I think it's a fair argument that they're, going outside the rules of 3.6.
It's not a bad argument, actually, now that I think about it, because, that would be typically when there's a gag order saying, don't talk about this case outside of this courthouse.
Yeah.
And then you see an outrageous motion and you as a prosecutor are pissed. You're like, everyone now believes that the gun definitively did not match the bullet that was recovered. And I've got to stop this. I've got to correct the record on this. Yeah, I mean, typically what you would do is you would file your own motion expressing your outrage, right? Like you can be as pissed off as you want in your pleading. And then the Daily Mail would have gotten that too.
There we go.
They would have had a day 2 headline. Right. But instead he spoke to the media. So you're right. He actually could have his hand slapped. I don't think it's going to do much.
No.
Do you? Like what would be the consequence?
No, and they have their own PR people. You know, the question is, well, are they going to pick it up the same way they picked up the defenses thing? And you never know. So just make sure you got good PR people and you have great relations with the media. Say, can you make sure that this runs? You know, you do that behind the scenes and then it runs and they're picking up from the pleadings, not because you're going out there and spewing your truth.
The prosecution's arguing they had a right to speak to reporters to correct misinformation about an inconclusive preliminary finding by ballistic experts, saying here, we were representing the true nature of that report. We did not make a statement of opinion about guilt. We'll see. Okay. Meanwhile, they did reveal this, Mark, that at the preliminary hearing, the prosecution is going to present not the actual trans furry lover of Tyler Robinson, whose testimony is going to be very important in this case.
Yes.
He's the one who allegedly received the confession from Tyler Robinson, who was on the receiving end of those texts and an alleged note confessing.
This
guy's going to be critical.
I mean, if they believe this person, we're done. That's it. Yeah.
Yep. He's critical. So, but at the preliminary hearing, they've revealed now that they're only going to be presenting a video statement by this guy. That clip will be the first public statement from Lance Twiggs, 22, since the murder. Now, they say he's fled Utah. He's lying low in Texas. What do you make of that? Is that normal or abnormal to take a key witness and just show a video of him?
Completely normal, because you're talking about a judge and the standard is much lower. If you're talking about a jury, you get that person in the jury box, you pay for them to fly in, you put them up at a hotel, which is all lawful and totally normal and typical, and you put them there so they can look directly at the jurors when you ask the questions, so they can be believed and credible. This is just a hearing in front of a judge. It's typical. A lot of these hearings, they don't even do a video. They'll just say, here, judge, here's a sworn statement the detective took. And a judge who's smart can just read it and accept it as fact. You don't need to bring that person in.
Makes sense. All so illuminating. Thank you, as always, my friend. You are positively legal.
I'm trying, Megyn.
Both things.
It's tough. It's tough. Nobody's paying me to come in second place. Megyn, it's rough to defend people. Come on. You know.
In the law and the news, it's tough to remain positive. But I feel like we've both done a good job of it. Generally speaking.
Yeah. Thank you,
Great to see
Megyn.
you.
Appreciate you.
Lots of love. All right, check out Positively Legal, wherever you get your podcasts. It's free. And I want to tell you two things. This just breaking here as we get ready to close out the show. Sad news. Tulsi Gabbard is okay, but she is stepping down. Tulsi Gabbard producing the following statement. I am deeply grateful for the trust President Trump placed in me and for the opportunity to lead the Office of the Director of National Intelligence for the last year and a half. Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle. Oh, that is just devastating news on so many fronts. I am so sorry to hear this about Abraham. They have a wonderful relationship, and it doesn't surprise me at all that with that kind of a diagnosis, she would step away to go be with him. God bless her and him as they take on this battle. That's daunting and dwarfs everything. On a separate note, I'm so sorry for us because we need her in that job. We really need her in that job. You know, I'm so sad about it because it feels like this great sort of bipartisan coalition that President Trump put together is falling off as he rounds into the year and a half mark of his presidency. You know, Marty McCary was pushed out at FDA. RFKJ has had his wings clipped repeatedly by people who do not support the MAHA agenda. And Tulsi Gabbard was, a great example of a Democrat, former Democrat, who went onto the Trump team because we wanted to do things differently. So was Joe Kent. He wasn't a Democrat, but I'm just saying he was more non-interventionalist in an important role, and he stepped down from the National Counterterrorism Center after the Iran War. And Tulsi, who's also non-interventionalist, and is in a really important role and has been very brave in it, I must say. It just sucks to lose her. There's not another Tulsi. That's the problem. You can get another person to run, of course. There's lots of people who want to serve in President Trump's administration, but there's only one Tulsi Gabbard. This is an important role. This is the person who oversees all of the intelligence agencies. And it's her job to come up with that presidential daily brief and make sure President Trump really knows what's what when it comes to the intel that these agencies are putting together. My God, it's a huge job, especially with some of these agencies that we do not trust, how they try to manipulate a president into pushing their own agenda. And those agencies had to go through Tulsi Gabbard, who's not easily manipulated and is smart and had a background in intelligence and in public service, having served in the House for many years, and it's going to be tough. Prayers for her, prayers for Abraham, thanks from a grateful nation, and prayers for President Trump that he chooses somebody great. And I don't know if I can say just as great as Tulsi, but just as interesting, unconventional, unique, and strong as Tulsi Gabbard has been. Lots of love to all of you. I want to tell you before we go that our Memorial Day show is on Monday. We feature war hero Alan C. Mack. I can't wait for you to hear this interview or watch it on YouTube. We sat down together right here in the Red Studio, and he was incredibly composed. He was stunningly impressive. And then we got to the story about him planning. He's a helicopter pilot, if not the most storied helicopter pilot in the war in Afghanistan. And we got to the story of how when Marcus Luttrell was missing after his unit was killed, his 3 brothers in arms were killed, and he was missing, and the entire military was trying to find him, not knowing whether he was dead or alive. His story featured in the movie Lone Survivor. They figured out that they thought he was alive and being sheltered by an Afghani fighter who was working with the U.S. Only problem was this is in the middle of a village that was covered by Taliban. And someone had to plan the mission, the highly daring, dangerous mission of getting into this town, getting into this house, and seeing if Marcus Luttrell, a Navy SEAL, was being sheltered in there, was being hidden in there by an Afghani. And that man was Alan C. Mack, who said, I know exactly how we need to do it with the decoys and the explosions over here to divert, and how the helicopter pilots would have to get in and get out and what we should do. And when I played for him the soundbite of Marcus and his identical twin brother, Morgan, on the MK show a couple of years ago, where we talked at length about the Lone Survivor story. And these are 2 very close brothers, both became Navy SEALs. One missing, and as it would turn out, yes, being harbored by an Afghani fighter, and one with his family in Texas, not knowing whether his identical twin brother was dead or alive, but praying nonstop with his mom and his dad and all of their family, got the call. And that moment where we play Morgan Luttrell telling the story of what happened when the call came in, the call that was made possible by the planning that Alan C. Mack had done a world away, is a moment you are not going to want to miss. When you see Alan's reaction, I'm still thinking about it. I've teared up many times over the past couple of days since it's happened. He is a special guy. And, these war stories, they're important that we listen to them. It's just a reminder of what our guys have sacrificed, who they are, how much it took. And, you can do it on Veterans Day, you can do it on Memorial Day, you can do it any old day. But it's especially important as we remember the fallen on Memorial Day to take a moment and talk to the ones who survived about the ones who didn't, and the sacrifice that was made by those who did live and those who paid the ultimate sacrifice along with their families. Lots of love to all of you. Hope you get some good time with your families, and we will be back. We'll have that episode air on Monday, as a new episode, and then we will be back live on Tuesday. See you then.